Welcome to the Communication Queens podcast for the visionary leaders, speakers, service providers, and podcasters who are looking to stand out sharing their story. I'm your host, Kimberly Spencer, former screenwriter turned master communications coach. On this podcast, I'll be coaching you on how to share your own transformation story so that you increase your visibility, influence, and income on podcast interviews. Let's get your voice heard. Hello, and welcome back to the Communication Queens podcast. I am your host, Kimberly Spencer, founder of the Communication Queens Agency, and I am so honored to be here with you for another quickie. So let's move forward and do the quickie, right? We're going to do the dang thing. Okay, so again, when will the sexual puns stop? They will not, because here is a reason why. And this is your quickie for today. The 2 best ways for memory retention. 1 is laughter and 2 is sex. So when you are on a podcast, when you are talking on your own podcast, if you can bring in laughter, maybe even in the form of making yourself laugh, because if you're able to laugh at yourself at like a silly thing that you say, or like, you know, I fumble my words sometimes and I could just like joke it off, and it makes me human. It makes me relatable, and people relate to your humanity because they buy from people they know, like, and trust. And if you can have that moment of laughter or have a sexual pun or relate to something dating-wise, sexually, give some form of metaphor in the form of relationships, we as humans are biologically hardwired to seek that out because we as humans are designed to mate, just like other mammals. So when you provide metaphorical information, and I'm not saying that your business has to be about sex. If it is, great. You already got a win. You're far ahead and above us and on top of us. Ha ha ha. See, another pun. They just keep dropping. They just keep happening. So if you can have a pun, like, you don't have to be a sex coach or a relationship coach to be able to do this. You can have a joke. You can have a metaphor. You can use, like, I regularly in my coaching, Crown Yourself, I use sex, birth, life, relationships, creation, sexual energy and creation as a consistent and through line metaphor, because it is something that all humans relate to, because it literally hits Maslow's basic need for sex and reproduction. So if you are able to leverage a metaphor in how you're sharing about what it is that you do, if you are, let's say, a business coach and you want to use a metaphor of like sales. So recently I just was pitched very badly about for sales, and I mentioned to this person, I said, hey, look, I consider sales to be like dating. And basically by asking if I'm going to be willing to invest on the second text that you send me without knowing whether you're able to meet my needs or who I am or what I do, you're basically like, hey, this is a blind date. And, you know, if this works out, are you willing to marry me? I'm like, no. But because I use that metaphor in a conversation, I also will use that in a conversation with a client when we're on their sales strategy call for their Queen Bee coaching package inside of Crown Yourself. So that ability to leverage a relational example or a sexual example, it will allow for greater memory retention, because we as humans are geared, like literally biologically wired, to connect and also to laugh. Like, laughter is food for the soul. And so if you're able to have a pun, make it silly, make it funny. One of my favorite things is when you go to a Brendon Burchard seminar and he makes a joke, but it's not really a joke, but it kind of is. And he's like, you know, amping up the crowd when he first comes out. He's like, who had a great night last night? Who made a new friend? Who had sex last night? And the whole crowd like laughs, but that is so intentional. He is a masterful speaker, and it is intentional because it creates laughter and it also has that sexual connection. So if you can do both in a podcast interview, you are golden for having your audience remember that interview and to have your interview stand out. So I hope this quickie served you today with giving you some inspiration for how you can create a little bit more laughter, a little more fun, and a little sexy time inside of a podcast interview. Again, this also comes with a disclaimer. Don't be creepy. Don't be weird. Don't be pushy. Don't be a taker. No one likes that sort of rapey energy inside a podcast. Period. End of story. Have sex be fun and playful. If you are not able to do that and you come off as creepy, you will get the exact opposite effect that you want. So focus on having it be from a fun and joyful place. If you don't feel that you're at that space or you're handling some negative beliefs or shame or guilt or anything around sexuality, then start with laughter first and then work on some healing of the sexual pieces, maybe with a sexual trauma-informed coach or working through some timeline therapy, some hypnosis, and then come back and then reevaluate the sex metaphors that you share or that are correlated or related to what it is that you do in your business. I hope that this served. As always, share this with a fellow podcaster or a podcast host or a fellow, business owner who's getting on podcasts so that they can have their interviews stand out, because your story deserves to be heard and your story has the power to save at least one life. So let's make sure it is memorable, because that one person is out there waiting to hear your story so that they can create the change that they want to create in their world. Thank you so much for listening. If you love this episode, subscribe, leave us a review, and share it with your friends. For more tips on guest podcasting, storytelling, and communication strategies, follow us on social media at Communication Queens Agency and visit us at communicationqueens.com. I look forward to seeing you in the next episode. And in the meantime, remember, your story has the power to save one life. Let your story and your voice be heard.